Today we're going to have a presentation by three fantastic performers. So the first one is going to be a presentation by Shawn. So Shawn, if you are ready, you can take over my stage.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here and awesome to be able to talk about shakuhachi to so many young musicians and especially young composers. I'll just say right now, please write more music. That's what I want, and that's what the shakuhachi community wants. We would love to have more music written by you, and if they don't play it, I'll play it. I promise you that. So today, as long as it's possible, I'll preface that. One condition is it has to be possible to play. Now, so I'm really excited to talk to you about shakuhachi, and I'd like to give you some basic things about the instrument, as well as some cool inventions and new things that have been coming up with the shakuhachi and new approaching, or how we approach technique in a modern era. So this is basically the shakuhachi. It's a very simplistic instrument. It's basically just a tube with 5 holes. So you have 4 on the front and 1 hole in the back. The interesting thing is the actual embouchure and the that's required to play the flute on the opening here is also very simplistic. So it's very similar to how Native American flutes are in the Americas, where they're all rim blown. So it's like blowing over an empty beer bottle and making a sound is actually the same way that we make how we make a sound on the shakuhachi. The tuning of the instrument is also really interesting too, because it's actually tuned to a minor pentatonic scale. A lot of other Eastern wind instruments are tuned to the major pentatonic scale, so it has a little bit of a more of a melancholic flavor to it, which fits really nicely with a lot of the traditional Japanese music. So I just want to give you a quick scale of the piece of the flute, so you can get a feel for the sound. So the shakuhachi originally came from China about 2,000 years ago. It made its way over from. Thank you so much, Martin, for the clap. Appreciate it. My best scale I could give. It originally came from China about 2,000 years ago during the Tang Dynasty. And when it's made its way over to Japan, it was primarily used in an ensemble called gagaku. And gagaku is imperial court music. And it's one of those things that if you heard it, you'd recognize it. You'd be like, I've heard that before somewhere in a video game or in a movie or in an anime especially. And the shakuhachi is very similar too. We'll get to that in a little bit, how we've heard it in a lot of different TV shows and stuff like that. When it was being used in the gagaku ensemble, it actually had a very interesting role. One of the suspected roles of the gagaku in the gagaku ensemble was that it would be as a tuning instrument. So the shakuhachi would be the first note that played, and everybody would adjust to that, which, by the way, I find very ironic because the shakuhachi is almost never in tune. So I can imagine when everybody's sitting down and they're like, hey, I wonder what shakuhachi note we're going to get today. And everybody's frantically trying to get a tuning. And I'm sure that you've all sat in an orchestra before and the oboe player plays a note and you go, it was definitely not an A. So the shakuhachi fell out of fashion, and most likely the reason why it fell out of fashion in the gagaku ensemble was because that the range of the shakuhachi was covered by other instruments, including the shinobue, the komabue, the ryuteki, and other instruments. So then it makes a resurgence in Japan, and sometime in the 1400s or 1500s, and these by these medicine monks called the komoso. And a lot of the history parts of the komoso and a lot of the history parts of the shakuhachi are very, very difficult to talk about, because you can get, if you ask 10 shakuhachi players about the history of shakuhachi, you're going to get 10 different stories about the history of shakuhachi. But what I'd like to say is that there were these monks, they were named komuso, and they were, depending on who you ask, you're going to get a different answer on what their role was. I've heard everything from undercover Christians to warrior monks to Zen priest to Jodo priest and everything in between. So there is a lot of different speculations and theories about who these people were and what these people did. But what is very clear is the lasting impact of the music. And I can't see anybody who's watching it besides my glorious, beautiful panel here. But out of my beautiful panel, has anybody ever seen the movie The Last Samurai by chance? Okay, so Ryo has seen it. Okay, Piwa has seen it. So in there, we have a bunch of sounds that are actually really, really famous that that come right from the shakuhachi, and they've almost become like a cliche. So one of those sounds would be something like this. And then, they add a bunch of reverb on it, and then it kind of just drifts off into nowhere, and everybody's like, oh, we are in Japan now. So with 3 notes, the shakuhachi creates the image of Japan. The second effect that is often used a lot in the movies is an effect called muraiki, and then overblowing. And so you might have heard something like, and then the samurais fight. That's the sword battle scene. It's in the middle of night, right? And then you hear that windy sound, and then you hear somebody go, what would they say? Teme nanda, something like that. And then they go and they try to fight or something like that. But what I find really interesting about the shakuhachi, comparatively to all the other instruments in Japan, is specifically the notation. So I'm going to try to do a quick little share screen here of some of the music. Okay, so what's so interesting about this music is a couple things. So thing number 1 about this music, and I'll get my handy dandy pen. I feel like I'm back in my lesson room teaching right now. Is the first thing that we notice is that we have no time signature in the beginning. So there's no 4/4, there's no 3/4, there's no 2/4, none of that stuff that would help us know, hey, you're going to be starting on this beat and ending on this beat. The second thing that we don't get anything of is we don't get any expressive markings throughout the piece. There's just nothing. So that tells me that, okay, maybe I have to just find my own expressions. Okay, fair enough. Then the third thing that we're not given in the music is any articulations. Well, then I'm like, okay, what are we actually being given here? What are we actually being given? And what we're being given here is tablature. This first note right here is called tsu. And what this tsu tells me is basically you're going to be doing this fingering. And it's kind of written like a Western grace note that goes to a re. So then I know, okay, I have a tsu to a re. I have 2 different fingerings right next to each other. But everything else in the piece is up to you to figure out. And so what I think I like about this as a Western classical musician is that it reminds me of playing Bach. And not from like the manuscript scores that are edited, like the original scores where it's just a bunch of notes and there's nothing. There, all you get are notes and then your freedom to try to express this music. So in a piece like this, what's also interesting about these notes is that they don't just refer to the fingerings, but also to the sound of the shakuhachi. So when I play a ro, right, a ro is the lowest note on the shakuhachi, and it's all the holes covered. When I say ro, the o sound is actually the sound that the shakuhachi should be giving. And then when I play tsu, I get u, the u sound. It's a little bit tighter. And then the next note, le, it should be a little bit more brighter and open in sound. Then chi is e, it has an even brighter sound. And then brighter and brighter and brighter all the way up into the top of the flute. So when we learn our music, we actually sing it as if we were doing Western solfege. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. But ro, tsu, re, chi, ri, i. So this opening of this piece starts on a tsure. So how we would play this is tsure, re, So now let's put it over to the shakuhachi. And so on and so forth. So we've already set up a unique style. Now that's not to say that the shakuhachi can't do other types of music either. So this one type of music that I just finished playing is called honkyoku, and that's primarily the music that would be played in a temple by these monks. And it is said that this was part of a practice of just meditation. There's a modern word that we use called suizen, and maybe a lot of the Western wind playing students have probably heard that term before, suizen, or blowing zen. But that's actually a modern term, and we have no record of it prior to the 1920s. So outside of this temple music, we can also play folk music. So something like even like Aki no Sato. And I have a shamisen player watching me, so that's really, really frustrating because they are like the minyo kings and queens. So anytime a shakuhachi player comes in and says, I know this song, well, do you really know it? Now, the minyo I absolutely love. I have a big minyo book that I go through and play, and I absolutely, actually, I love playing with shamisen players. I just wish they wouldn't play so loud because then I don't have to push so hard, but they're incredible. And another type of music that we do, and this is where I want to focus the most of my talk on, is the contemporary music. So as a composer myself and having a degree in composition, but not really writing that much, ironically, is that I just love contemporary music and I love all the weird sounds that are possible. So the shakuhachi already has built into its traditional music a lot of really interesting contemporary-like sounds. For example, something like the muraiki effect, which means bellowing the note. And so these types of sound really pique the interest of a lot of composers because Western flute players are told, don't play like that. Don't add air into that. You want the note to be clear and pure and warm. But the shakuhachi will say, that's a great note, but you also want everything in between to make the most nastiest sound, because that nasty sound is also just as beautiful as the so-called warm, beautiful tone. Some of the other effects that are really well known for the shakuhachi are something like the koro koro effect. And so the koro koro effect actually comes from when you have two different pieces of bamboo that are in the forest growing, and a gust of wind comes by, and then you get the koro 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 koro, and so on. But there are other versions of that. So it doesn't stop there. So we have a more airy version called horo horo. Then we also have another version called uhagoro. And this is a specific technique that was designed in the 1700s for a piece called Ichigo Reibo, which is supposed to mimic the sound of a dragon underneath the water. But again, it doesn't end there, because with the contemporary music, one of the things composers love to do is push the envelope for what an instrument can do and what an instrument can't do. So one of the things that I've come up with are a couple of interesting effects. So one of the main things that that we can do on the shakuhachi that I don't think a lot of composers necessarily realize is how many different multiphonics we actually have. So multiphonics are, of course, playing multiple notes at the same time. And so on and so forth. In addition with that, we can also sing and play at the same time. And whatnot, and change and doing harmonies. One of my projects was to do Amazing Grace and try to harmonize with myself. It didn't work. I have to keep practicing way more. So I can't do it today, but maybe in the future I can show you how to do that. Another thing that I also love doing, especially when I talk with kids about shakuhachi, is I love showing them how to do beatboxing with shakuhachi too. So one of the things I do is I take a song that they know. So here's a famous tune. So this is Kutsu ga naru. famous children's song. Now you just add the backbeat to it. And so on and so forth. And then you have to break away and you give them hip hop. Then you can add the backbeat for yourself and add some bass to it. And so on and so forth, and give them a little bit of jazz, a little bit of hip hop, and a little bit of something else, to showcase that the shakuhachi is not limited to any sort of genre of music, nor to any sort of technical limitation. I brought out a couple other flutes as well because I want to show you guys some of the differences between some of the flutes that we have. So we have flutes of antiquity and flutes of modern. So the flute that I have in my left hand might look like my right to you, I'm not sure. This is an Edo period flute. So this particular flute is actually 300 years old, and it has a very, very different sound to the modern shakuhachi. So I'll play that opening of that Honshirabe line again one time with a little bit of extra flair, and then I'll play it on the same exact thing on the old flute. Same thing, just 300 years in the past. Now the question becomes, why is the sound so different from then to now? And the reason is for two primary reasons. One, if you look at the actual size of the flute, it's become much, much thicker. Both the walls of the flute and, of course, the actual thickness of the flute. Another thing, too, are the size of the holes. The holes being a lot smaller means that there's not going to be as much sound that's going to be able to come from the holes. So the only hole that you get from is from the bottom, which is also much, much smaller than the modern flute. But it doesn't end there. We also have what I call, it's actually my new toy, and I call it the tank. So if you look at it, my new flute is like almost double the size of my primary 1.8. So this is actually called a 3.0. And with these longer flutes, you get a much, of course, deeper sound and lower sound. And you can see how much thicker the 3.0 is than the other flute, in addition to just the sheer length of it. Now, flutes like this require a lot more of a stretch, and I should do more yoga in order to play it. Otherwise, I'm going to hurt myself. But this, the flute sound is really, really intoxicating. Of course, there's limitations, just like there is on Western bass flute or Western alto flute. Not so much as alto flute, but definitely the Western bass flute, where we're not going to be able to move as quickly or be able to be as agile. And with a lot of the music that we play on shakuhachi, a lot of it tends to be on the more meditative sound side, longer phrases, more about the color of the note rather than more of the how many notes we can fit into a measure. A couple other cool effects that I just want to show you about the shakuhachi is the fact that it has 4 distinct voices. So we have this thing called shomyo in Japanese, which is called or in Japan rather, which originates from India. And the music from that was transferred through India was actually Buddhist liturgical music. And so I'll show you what a score of this stuff looks like. And the first thing that I noticed about this music, and I hope it's clear enough. I don't know if I could become like, if you guys could pin me or whatnot, whoever's streaming, but the music here actually looks very, very similar to the shakuhachi music. And in multiple ways, the only thing that's different is instead of getting this, instead of giving us a tablature note like tsu de uro tsu de chi di ro, it gives us the character in which we're going to sing. So if we look at the opening here of the first characters, we have nyo rai ke do. Now, is the rhythm to this piece? Not necessarily. It's all intuitive rhythm. So listen to how the sound of it is of this piece sung, and listen to how some of the similarities are in the shakuhachi music. Nyo lai ke do ko to o e te shalalim ju ni kakure shi ni. And so on and so forth. You can see how a lot of the even styles of the shomyo singing, of re-articulation of notes, are also within the style of the shakuhachi. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, was the style of minyo singing. And in minyo singing, they have, and I definitely cannot minyo sing, so don't expect me to do that. But some of the styles that they do with turning in the voice, mimic the same sort of style of the minyo singing. And in addition to that, we also have other sort of more operatic sort of style, bel canto style singing that is possible. But the most interesting part is the singing that happens naturally in nature. So one of my favorite sounds is the crane sound that we make on the shakuhachi. So a crane is called tsuru in Japanese, and one of the most famous shakuhachi pieces is called tsuru no sugomori, which means the nesting cranes. And throughout this piece, it utilizes the koro koro technique, which I showed before, and a technique called tamane, which is flutter tonguing. So the technique that we end up getting is And if you've ever heard a crane before, when they actually, like a red-crowned crane, when they do the sounds, it actually has that sort of flutter-tongued sound, and it's really, really beautiful the way that they do that. So to end it off, what I'd like to do is just play one piece for you live, and then I would like to open it up for some questions as well. So let me just pull this up. And actually what I'll do is I think I'll play that piece that I just mentioned, which is the nesting cranes. Okay, so here we go, nesting cranes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so I try to give a little bit more time because I wanted to have more time to answer questions. And there's always somebody who really thinks, can you play the Naruto theme? So it's already out of the way. You don't have to ask. I can play the Naruto theme. So, questions and about Shakuhachi and anything pertaining to Shakuhachi.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Shawn.
Yes.
So, if anyone has any questions, please unmute.
I'm sure.
Yes.
First of all, that's amazing, Shawn. Like, thank you very much for sharing to us.
Absolutely.
My question was about somehow like we like as a composer we always like fighting with traditional sense. Like we try to find something that beyond the traditional sense.
Yes.
And try to find the development of the Japanese or like even me like Thai traditional instrument or like the conception. So what is your idea about the beyondness? Like something that you feel like I mean, of course you're such a great player, and also like I have to look up your website, like you share a lot of like fundamentals and also like a lot of like information. So what is the next step for you, like in your thoughts? Like how would you feel that the Japanese traditional music could be beyond the boundaries, like beyond the like the current
Yeah,
music?
that's a great question, and I spend a lot of time in a practice room by myself. You're actually in my practice room right now. It's also where I teach, but I spend a lot of time specifically just trying to come up with new techniques. So some of the techniques that I've done, and then I share it to composers, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm using that." So here's one example. So that's what I call like the dragon's roar, the lion's roar. And it's just that I don't share how I can do it because I want to be the only person to do it for a while until someone else figures it out. But like it's techniques like that where I don't think it actually pulls away from Japanese tradition whatsoever. Yes, it's an unorthodox way of playing. However, we're still talking about nature. It's still something that it's an animal of like, roaring, or you can, whether you want it to be mythological and make it the dragon's roar or the lion's roar, it doesn't matter. But it still has some sort of root connection with the tradition of Japan. Or even something like what I do now a lot of is I do a lot of throat singing and mixing that with the instrument. So I've done things like where you buzz inside the flute. But if you mix that at the same time with singing, then you can get that perfect fourth. Now it sounds a little bit more like a horai. Now if I do it with the Tuvan throat singing, it's just that sound. Then I can get that, and then roll the tongue or buzz and do the same sound. Same sort of thing. You get kind of like the drone like effects of maybe like a chromatone, I think is what it's called, that instrument that's just two pitches or one pitches, that are working across a bunch of strings. So when I'm taking that, it's actually drawing inspiration from other instruments within the culture, as well as what do I hear in nature. So even like the sound that was invented in like I think the 1700s with the, it's actually an unorthodox technique that you don't find in most of the music. However, it's something to nature. So anything that can relate to nature or the culture, even loosely, I think is more than should be more than just embraced, but it should be welcomed into the new body of music.
Oh, that's great. So I mean, something that I like an idea from now is like, I mean, you have like your own, cultural background, right? And
Yeah.
like once you learn, I can see that the development of the techniques that you use is also, like come from Western side. So it's kind of like combination, like multiphonics, like, like
Sure.
kind of like from singing or like something. I can see, I mean, in a positive way, I feel like it's a kind of like combination, like between like different like thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also like the good thing is that it move like the create more like a kind of new instrumental development.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say a little bit more about the culture itself, like how how would this like innovation in terms of like Shakuhachi technique would contribute to Japanese culture itself? So like, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. It's a very difficult question too, and I think that this becomes actually like how I see it. So I could be completely wrong about this, but I do see in the Shakuhachi world like a Kanto versus Kansai, and in the Kanto world, that's Tokyo and Chiba, and which is a lot of pop music and a lot of contemporary music and a lot of jazz. Where in the Kansai area, I see a lot of sankyoku, which is the traditional court music, and honkyoku players. Not to say that there aren't both in both areas. It's just what I see that's popular, especially the pop music in the Tokyo side or the Kanto side. Where I can see some of these innovations happening is that it actually can bridge between the two of them. So where we both share on techniques, if the modern side could use more of the traditional techniques and more of the traditional side, then I think the traditional side would be more interested in coming over there, and then they would be more interested in coming over there because they're grabbing from their own tradition rather than just playing. And it's actually one of my big things that I try to pick on with people, which is if they sound like a Western flute player, why not just play a Western flute?
Wow, thank you. So, any more questions?
Yeah, deal.
Hey, thank you so much, Shawn, for sharing wonderful stories and playings and the depth of your knowledge and experience with the instrument. And I really appreciate your contribution and your effort and everything that really inspired me to go look back my own cultural roots since I met you during the pandemic. And it's been like such a fantastic journey for me to not only the instrument shakuhachi, but just the Japanese culture, Japanese history, Japanese aestheticism, like everything that you brought me back to my own roots. I think one of the questions, or maybe the things that I'm curious that if you could share some, is that I know you are also very dedicated researcher on the Japanese aestheticism, and then you've already created even like a YouTube content that introduces Japanese aestheticism in sort of a comical way, which was really popular. Maybe and also like in the last lectures that we had, I think the concept of ma, or some of the Japanese aestheticism came up when we talked about Japanese music. Maybe you could sort of share some of the examples of like when or how you would incorporate those Japanese philosophical ideas, traditional philosophical ideas into your playing.
Yeah, Japanese aestheticism is very unique and one of a kind, especially that character ma. So let me get my little calligraphy pen out here and let me draw the character in question here. So we have the character ma, which is this character. Okay. It's this character here, ma. Now, what's interesting about this character is that this is what it looks like today. Now, a long time ago, and actually not that long ago, only about 100 years ago, it was actually written differently. It was actually written like this, which is like this instead. That was about 120 years ago. It used to be written, and this is the old script. Now, the only difference is this character here in the middle, this is the character for sun. The character on the back here is the character for moon. So a long time ago, what the imagery was, which you'd have like these doors, like here, these shoji doors, and you'd have them, let's see if I can reach all the way back, and you'd have them like this. There are your two gates, and in between you have the moonlight coming through the gate, right, or come through the door, and it's these two massive things are necessary for the beauty that it is. And it's what's amazing about it is that you're actually taking away from the full vision of the moon in order to see only part of it, which is really like a statement of less is more onto a very extreme amount. So how does that work in terms of the music, and what does that mean when we play the music? Okay, well, in any sort of piece of music that we play, there's five steps in every single note that we play, right? Or 5 points to every single phrase. So this is what I'll start with. Now, the first part of it is the conception of it. So we'll put that as a circle, okay? So the conception of the note is right in the beginning, and that's the breath in. So any professional Western musician will also tell you that the music starts as soon as you take your first breath. So that, okay, life has already been made. It's there. That's the life force in. Now, there's a very, very subtle moment that happens here, and we'll mark that with an X. And that X is actually the beginning. Now, notice we're talking about time periods here. So, right, it's all of these gates that are showing us a little sliver of like that beauty, and it's every single moment. So ma is not just silence. It's not just one inter moment. The character itself actually means like time, like an actual time of like you could say jikan, which means it's like the length of time, the length of this thing dying away. And time, toku, actually comes from the word or toki comes from the word tokimasu, which is to dissolve. So things are dying away, and it's the measuring of the things dying away. So this moment right here, this is actually the birth of the note. That's the first sound that comes out. So when I'm closing my mouth to make that sound, there's that little beginning, the first moment of sound. That's the first moment of life. That's the actual birth that's happening of the note. Then we have the sustain. Mark that with a long, right? So this is the life actually being lived. Then after that, we have the sound dying away, going towards death. Then there's the silence, and this is the really crucial part, because this is the mystery. This is the mystery that we all live with, is what happens after death. And that's where that last moment happens, where the sound, for us, we don't hear it anymore. However, we can still feel it. So when I play a note, right, you hear that note in your mind. That there's that da, it's ringing. Now we're just highlighting that by making the note go to absolute nothing, and it almost seems as if we're still playing it, right? It's like in a kind of a lot of old Chinese paintings, you'd see the dragon's tail kind of swirling and swirling off into the distance until it's not, you can't see it anymore. However, you know it's still going. So the entire process, when you're creating the phrasing phrase by phrase, which is ma, and this is only one example of ma, is like so. And that note doesn't end until the next breath. But when you highlight all 5 points so clearly, the time taken necessary becomes you're putting in all those pillars to highlight the beauty of that moonlight that's coming through in the music. Now you do that with all the phrases, you have multiple iterations of life happening, right? This is a lot of the idea of what is that called? Samsara. You die, you birth and death and birth and death and birth and death, cycle and cycle on for infinity, with this idea creating these pillars to highlight the moon. So that would be a very, very quick example of how I take some of the ideas of aestheticism from the Japanese traditional culture and then put it into the music.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shawn, again for give a beautiful presentations and play some beautiful sounds for us. So thank you very much.
Yes.
So the next presentation will be by Marin. So Marin, if you are ready, you can take over me.
And before I go, I just want to say thank you guys very much. I do have to go. I actually have a student who's staying with me at my house. I get to torture him for the next couple of days. I mean, teach him. That's what I meant to say. Anyways, thank you guys so much and have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you very much, Shawn.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna start. Can you see the screen now? Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Marin Naruse, and I'm 20 years old, and I go to a university in Tokyo. I'm a student at Keio University in Japan, and yeah, thank you very much for having me as a guest today. It is such an honor. And if you have any question about me, please ask me after this presentation. So today I'd like to give a presentation about what is Shimauta in Amami Islands. I think most of you don't know about Amami Islands that much, so I'll explain now. Amami Islands are the southern islands in Japan and located between Kyushu and Okinawa. And there are 8 manned islands that are Amami Oshima, which is the main island and I grew up. Kikaijima, Kakeroma, Ukejima, Yorojima, Tokunoshima, Okinoerabujima, Yoronjima. I think my mom is here and she's unmuted. Okay, let's ignore. Okay, and the climate of Amami is subtropical, and there are many natural treasures of Japan, such as the beautiful bird called Rurikakesu, and yeah, which is Rurikakesu inhabits only in Amami Oshima and Tokunoshima, and also there is Amami rabbit, which has not changed its shape since ancient times. So just like this, Amami is known for its very beautiful nature and was registered as a World Natural Heritage Site by UNESCO in July this year. Also, because of COVID-19, there are less numbers of tourists to Amami Islands today. Amami is now trying to protect the beautiful nature while also getting more attention from outside the island. Okay, so I'm gonna text to my mom because she's unmuted. Okay, back to my presentation. So surrounded by its beautiful nature, people in Amami have went through the history of invasion by Ryukyu and Satsuma and US forces in each era. And Amami's history can be divided into 3 eras. First of all, there was Naha period. In 1429, the Ryukyu kingdom was founded and they expanded into Amami Islands. Ryukyu kingdom is the strong kingdom that was founded in today's Okinawa Islands. And after that, in Yamato period, Satsuma clan, today's Kagoshima prefecture, conquered Ryukyu and they started to rule the islands. Finally, in American period, Amami Islands were separated from Japan and fell under the direct American control. So especially when Amami was under the control of Satsuma clan, today's Kagoshima, it was very hard because people in Amami were forced to harvest sugar cane and give brown sugar to Satsuma clan no matter what happens. And if they don't do that, they will be punished. But even during these hard times, Amami people found their joys in singing Shimauta with the instrument called Sanshin. I will show you Sanshin later. Okay, and okay, now I'm going to explain about Shimauta. So when you hear the word Shimauta, most people think that it's Okinawa's music because many Okinawan J-pop songs use the word Shimauta in their lyrics. But actually, Shimauta is the traditional music only unique to Amami Islands. Also, Shima means island in Japanese, but in Amami Island, it also means community. So it is more correct to call Shimauta the song of each community or village rather than the song of the island. For example, even if the song is the same, the way it is sung will change in other village in Amami. Also, there are 2 main ways to sing Shimauta. The way of singing in the southern part of Amami is called Higauta, which requires a lot of kind of intonation because in the southern part of Amami, there are mountain roads with many ups and downs. So they sing in a way that requires a lot of intonation. And in northern part of Amami, there are more like flat roads. So they sing in a more elegant way compared to southern people. And it is called Kasauta in northern areas. Also in Shimauta, there are no musical scores. So when you learn how to sing Shimauta, you just have to sit in front of your teacher and imitate how she or he sings. Or you can just imitate your friends or somebody who is good at Shimauta. Also, since the lyrics are naturally made in people's lives, songwriters of Shimauta are still unknown, and lyrics are mostly about life lessons, love story, dedication to nature deity, and hate for Satsuma clan. Okay, next. So Shimauta is still very rooted in Amami people's culture and lives. There is a game called Uta Asobi that when one sings, the other must answer. Like when one sings, they sing back to him. And the one have to choose and sing the most appropriate song in reply to other songs. So here's a video of Uta Asobi. It's quite long, but I hope you enjoy watching this.
いや、いい、前にお母さんいいね。じゃあもう一周。
Okay, so that was Uta Asobi. So as you might noticed, we all sang in different ways, even though it is the same song. It is because we all are from different areas of Amami, such as as I explained, from South area or North area. So I think that diversity is also one of the most interesting points of Shimauta. So this game, Uta Asobi, is a very old style of Shimauta performance. On the other hand, okay. On the other hand, in order to pass down Shimauta Shimauta competitions have been held since the 1970s. Accordingly, the way of singing Shimauta has changed for stage performance from old style uta asobi. In short, it has changed from music to enjoy with everyone, from to music to fascinate or show. But some people, especially older people in Amami, say that Shimauta today is not the real Shimauta because it has changed. But in my opinion, it has to be changed to fit with the times if we want Shimauta to be passed down. So now I'd like you to watch my music video of Yoisura Bushi, which is also one of the most famous and popular song in Amami as Shimauta. And obviously I don't sing in the old style, but this is also how we sing Shimauta in Amami today. Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Marin, maybe you need to press the share desktop button.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe now you can, yeah.
Hmm. Should I start from the beginning?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so thank you. That was my music video of Shimauta. The song is called Yoisurabushi. And as I explained in the past, utasobi was like more normal way to enjoy Shimauta, but because of the existence of Shimauta competition, we started singing along just I did in the music video. So it's a new style of Shimauta, and also it is said that in the past, women were not allowed to play Sanshin. It was men's things. So it changed with the times. So that's also interesting point. Okay, so finally, I'd like to talk about why I sing Shimauta. So I think Shimauta is the voice of Amami people in the past. In fact, in Amami, there is a famous saying. It is, you cannot talk about Amami without talking about Shimauta. So by listening to it, not only I can learn the history of Shimauta, but also the life lessons I need to hear. It's like a textbook of life for me. So I am very grateful to ancestors who have passed on this beautiful culture from generation to generation. And as a Shimauta singer, I hope that I can do the same for the next younger generation. So that was all for my presentation. And if you have questions, please ask me.
Wow, thank you very much, Marin, for beautiful presentations and beautiful short clip video performance of Himauta. It was very amazing.
Thank
So,
you.
if
I have
anyone
my,
oh, please.
sorry, I have my Sanshin now, so I will show you.
Wow, great.
This is my Sanshin case. I'm going to change my back screen mode so that you can see Sanshin more clear. So this is Sanshin. It's very similar to the Sanshin in Okinawa, but it's quite different. One of the difference is this string. So in Amami, women are said to be very spiritual animal. So we sing in a higher note, which is appropriate for women. But in Okinawa, they have very strong men culture. So they sing in a more like lower note. So that is why in Amami's Sanshin, the string is thinner so that we can sing in higher note. But in Okinawa's instrument, the string is more like thick for the lower note to play. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Marion, so it's beautiful. You know, like
Thank you.
I mean, it's great without saying anything, first of all. But what I'm interested in the most is that the relation between your singing and Sanshin. Like if you could, I already can sense like from your like video, and also like you're talking about like the history about like from different parts of region. So then like maybe you can talk a little bit more about how do you feel about that, like the relationship between when you play Sanshin and also when you're singing. So what is kind of methods, like what is kind of like that makes you doing this?
So about the relation of Shimauta, the music and this instrument is, I think people in Amami, they are more focused. But yesterday came to Amami people used to sing with the back music of nature, like the singing of birds or the sound of waves. So that is a relation of Shimauta and Sanshin. But when I joined the competition, I play Sanshin by myself because it's easier for me to focus on my singing. But the other players, some of them want to focus on just singing, so they prepare somebody to play Sanshin for them. So it really depends on people.
Thank you. I think I just I think that's great answers, and I just want to focus more about you actually. Like how do you feel like about yourself? Because of course I can see, like as you explained very clearly about the the history, but for you yourself, like how do you feel, like how do you see any connection between like singing, like maybe like just for example like melodies, lines that goes through the instrument, like kind of connection in the sense of performance, like as your performer. So just for you personally.
Yeah, so in Shimata there are more than 60 songs and countless lyrics, and they are mostly about, as I explained, there are many life lessons. So so for me, singing Shimata is, I feel like I'm listening to the voice from the past. So for me, it's like textbook for me. And yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Yusan.
Well, thank you so much, Marin, for this wonderful presentation and such a beautiful singing of your videos. And also Uta Asabi. I have never actually seen the Uta Asabi, the improvisation thing happening, with the video and live. So that was very interesting. I guess one of the things that I'm really attracted to Shimauta in the first place is, like you mentioned, the diversity, like when people talk about, like it's kind of a common, mistake or common sort of a stereotype when, people talk about like music from East, let's say, people would think about, pentatonic scale or whatever the sort of stereotype things, although, Japanese music has a distinct characteristic in Chinese music and, Thai music, but even so, within Japanese music, there are so much diversity, from what Shawn played, gagaku or honkyoku, which developed throughout in the Edo period or in the samurai area, and yet we have this Shimauta that was, developed in this small island in southern island in Japan. Even still, there are still distinct differences between Okinawa music and Amami Oshima music. And within Amami Oshima, there's still differences between, and South and East. So it's just just that the idea of diversity
Yeah,
is very interesting, and also, like you said, playing Shimauta has a life, right? Like from the past. So like in order to understand the culture and the society that were used to be there, I think Shimauta is such an important, part of the culture, to really understand the past, to really understand the people, to really understand this southern island in Japan. So yeah, that's like something that I really got attracted, from your talk, and since I met you, and I'm so grateful for that. I guess one quick question for you, Marin, is you've been trying to promote the beauty of Shimauta, right? Like, what do you see yourself in the future? Like, what kind of things that you're planning to do in the future with this instrument, Sanshin and Shimauta?
I'm not very sure, like clearly, but I'm hoping to collaborate with many traditional musical instruments around the world, so that Shimauta will be known by more people. And I think this so I was not born in Amami, and I am not native like Amamian, but I do think that this culture needs more attention. So I really hope to collaborating with more artists around the world. Yes. And so you mentioned about the diversity of Shimauta, and there's a like funny, interesting story, which is, so if one person sings in Amami, they soon know that he or she is from the southern part or the northern part by his way of singing. So that is also interesting. And also in the competition, we all sing in totally different ways. So it's very hard for judges to decide who is a winner. So you have to be really stand out in the competition. I mean, Ryo-san once came to Amami and watched our competition. So how was it?
I mean, it was extraordinarily interesting. Like you said, every person, every singer had different style of singing, different, sort of technique, vocal technique, and different sort of texture in the Sanshin playing as well. And those who have never been to Amami Island, and those who have never been to the competition is divided into the kind of the levels. It's not actually levels, it's actually the age group. So like if you listen to the singers from younger singers, it is totally different sounding and singing than older people. So it was very interesting to sort of hear the differences of singing and playing depending on the age, but they have their own sort of distinct characteristics, and such a beauty in from the singing, like Marin and like her age versus like people who are like our grandparents' age. So yeah, it's again like it's a diversity, and that was just such a beauty to see and witness in that competition.
Yeah, there are three. I think there are three part. なんか部門ってなんて言いますか?
Like the level, the genre, yeah, level.
In Shimauta competition, and even kids join the competition, and it's so cute that they hold Sanshin that is so much bigger than their body, and they play so hardly. So it's so cute. I think we have more time now, so maybe I can perform one song.
Yeah, please.
it's very, so I'm in Tokyo right now, so it's very difficult to practice in Tokyo because of my neighbor problem. But I'm going to close my window now. So. Okay, so I am going to sing Asabana Bushi, which is a greeting song in Amami Island. So Asabana Bushi is always sung in the first part of performance as greeting, and there are many lyrics and it's so hard to decide which lyrics to sing, but today is such a I had this beautiful opportunity to meet with you all, so I sing in the lyrics that wishes good fortune to everyone here. Okay, so Asabana Bushi. Thank you. Yeah, that was Yoisurabushi. So Shimauta is sung in Amami dialect. So it's totally different from normal Japanese. So even Japanese cannot understand Amami's dialect.
Thank you very much, Marin, for a beautiful presentation. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
So after this, we will have next presentation by Tontrakul. So Tontrakul, are you ready?
Hi everyone.
Wow, great. Nice to see you.
Me too.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you guys. Oh,
Okay.
very exciting. Are you
You
hear me?
know,
Yeah, I
you
can hear you.
know, I think maybe we can reintroducing ourselves a little bit, just
Sure.
like to know each other because like not all of us being in the first session. So maybe like we can start from Tontrakul. So like if you can, introduce yourself bit so like everyone can know you more. Yeah.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Tontrakul and you can call me Ton. It's my nickname. Right now I'm artist who to play Isan music. Isan is the northeast part of Thailand, and I play traditional music. Khaen is a bamboo mount organ, the Thai lute, pin, and multi instrument in traditional. Also, I have the band called H7. It's like a combination between Thai and pop and jazz, something like that, to find a new sound. And I have experience to work with many musicians around the world. And also, right now, I'm teaching at College of Music, Mahidol University. All right.
Cool.
Yeah, what do you want to go next?
Yes. So this is Pilar. I'm composer. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm so glad that I'm be able to like connect all of you. Like Tontagrun is like one of like the figure. Like one of like very important traditional music player in Thailand, and of course like all of us here is kind of like very important too. Like Marin, like Rio, Tanakan, like Nobukorn, and Ajan, AnoThai. So like all of us, it really is such a pleasure, like to meet everyone here. So thank you very much.
So my name is Nopakorn. I am guitarist, and it's such an honor for me to organize this events and connect you all together. In the past few days, I got many interesting stuff to keep me thinking about music, about cultures, about everything in general. So thank you very much for everyone to joining in these sessions, and I'm looking forward to working with you all in the future. Real?
Hello, I'm Ria. I'm a conductor and the founder of Mudita. It is such a pleasure to be able to connect with you all, and really, like Nopakon said, that these talks, over the course of these talks, really inspired me to think, our future music and culture, and also so grateful for all the colleagues from Thailand and from Japan, Mudita, to share your knowledge and experiences and such an engaging topics. So yeah, truly grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
Okay, Marin?
Oh, hello. My name is Marin, and it is such an honor to be invited here today. I've just gave in my presentation, but I sing Shimauta of the Amami Islands, and I hope to collaborate with you all in the future. Thank you.
So is Tanakan here?
Hi, I'm Tanakan. Can you turn off your? Thank you. We're in the same room right now, so yeah. So hi, I'm Tanakan. Nice to meet you all, and it's good to learn more about Japanese cultures these past few days, and also like Thai cultures in the aspect that I never heard before, and also like to think all about collective cultures is a very interesting thing for me. Looking forward to an upcoming presentation by Tontrakul.
อาจารย์อานนท์ไทยครับ Are you here?
I am. Yes.
So would you kindly introduce yourself a bit to
Okay.
audience?
Okay. Hello. Hi. My name is AnoThai, and I'll be sitting together with you and Tontrakul. Sawadee ka. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for these wonderful presentations that you have been made. Thank you so much. It's all really beautiful, and it's really wonderful to hear a lot of like a lot of lost meaning in the music that we haven't heard for a really long time. So thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Should we go to next person first, to Tontrakul, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and after that, the panel discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah, we are looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
โอเคครับ so how I can share slide
So you can press the share screen button, the green one under
right
yeah.
it's so confused about WebEx and Zoom
Yeah. I also use WebEx as my primary.
Yeah. Just a reminder, like once you click share screen, don't forget to click share sound. So
yes.
then you can...
Yeah.
Thank you. My for video clip also right
Cool.
okay ครับ okay I'm Tontrakul and I'm very glad to be participate with the panel, and so is my English very poor, but if I talk and I explain slowly, I'm so sorry for everyone to understand about this topic. First of all, I think I thanks of Ajahn AnoThai first, because she is the who to give me like an opportunity to work and deeply in this topic around 2 years ago, and I have to find myself about how to deeply in the instrument can in traditional way and modern way, how to work with the new composer, the new style, and how to bring more identity of the instrument. So I'm going to talk about the Khaen demonstration for modern music. So I'm to talk about myself again, but so deeply about my career as well. So I'm graduate from College of Music, Mahidol University, and I study in Thai music education and pedagogy. Right now I'm studying in master degree in music performance. So I have experience to perform abroad many country, and I have the band is named Asia 7. It's the combination between Thai music, Isan music, pop and jazz to create a new style and style of Thai music. Also, I work with many band like electronic music, pop, neo soul, and collaborate with many musicians around the world. And right now I'm teaching in College of Music University, Mahidol University, and I'm compose music for the commercial TV, movie. Also do my band is the name Tontrakul. It's like a drum and bass electronic to bring Isan music together. Asia 7 and Nisatiwa like a lo-fi hip hop beat mixing with the music. Head is like a black music, is a neo soul funk beat. And also I have like a collaboration between Thai musician and Norwegian musician to finding the new sound and new style for when we make music together. and also I am a full-time instructor at music College of Music, Mid University, and I don't have not much about experience about the modern music, but I have a bit to work with composer and the musician to play like a modern music in 2 or 3 years ago, and I was working with AYE at Kalyani Music Institute and play like a modern style and find the new technique from my instrument as well. So today I going to talk and show you some material about my instrument. If you want to bring my instrument to compose your music, it's like a modern style, and how to bring like a more in identity and find a new sound and new technique from my instrument. I will talk about a little bit of overview and construction and playing position, pitch and layout a little bit. Also to talk about the traditional technique and what the new technique I find in this instrument. All right, I think everyone here, like the mouth organ music instrument, but in this area in Southeast Asia, we use the mouth organ look like this, and this is we call Khaen. It's very popular in Thai and Lao culture, but actually we see around Asia, East Asia, also Southeast Asia, in mainland and Iceland, we have like a this instrument is look like similar, but depend on the area that we use. All right, the Khaen is the mouth organ hose pipe, which are usually made from bamboo. The most characteristic of the Khaen is the free reed, which is made of brass or silver. It is related to Western free reed instruments such as the harmonium, accordion, harmonica, which were developed begin around 18th century from the Chinese Sheng. The Khaen can be played as a solo instrument, we call Dio Khaen, as a part of ensemble like a Wong Pong Lang or Khaen Wong ensemble. It's a Khaen Wong ensemble like have many sides of the Khaen in the ensemble, like you have string or bass, quintet, quartet, something like that, or as accompaniment for Molam singer. And right now Khaen had been bringing to play with popular. It's very various. Okay,ครับ. Let's see. It is the picture of Khaen Wong ensemble that you see. We combine the drum and the flute, fluid, and Khaen many side, right? Also, this the right side. You can see the more Khaen player who to like play accompaniment for the singer. The next part, I'm going to talk about the construction of the instrument. We can separately to the consist of 5 main parts of the instrument. The first one we call the winches. This is made from hardwood. It's called padu wood. It is hollow out of the chisel and knife to insertion of the pipe in this. The next one is the bamboo pipe, and inside the bamboo pipe you have to see the reed like this. It's made but maybe made from the copper or silver brass. Depend can you find in that area. The next one, look. The next one is the finger hole. You can see one pipe. We have like a per one single hole to hold it. When you blow in or blow out, you have to hold it and make the sound happen. And you see the reed like this. And this one we call เครือย่านาง have to try together. And you see this the black one is we call beeswax or ขี้สูตร ขี้สูตร is like a you have to wax the air outside when you blow in. Okay, the next part you see the pitch and layout of the can. The can is like a not separate like a do re mi fa sol la ti do, but we depend on like a fingering identity fingering by the instrument. That you see we have like a 2 octave and can separate right side and left side the notes like this. And the first one is near your body is the lower pitch. We use just only the thumb finger to hold, and the last one we just use the pinky finger to hold it like this. And we have 6 notes of the middle. You can choose what you can play and you can hold like this. All right, about the basic traditional technique. The can that you see in the picture is a very common can that we use. Is very worldwide in Isan and Lao. About the traditional basic we use in traditional Lao and traditional Thai clan playing consists 2 layers. The first one is drone and the second one is melody. The melody is often to play like a parallel octave, 5th and 4th, and maybe also like a elaborately ornamented. Also about drone, we can separate and we can like a make the line, or we call in Isan we call line, in the Western we call mode, and the traditional can playing based on 6 mode, each with characteristic drone and idiomatic melodic figure. These 6 modes are shown in the platform. I will show you later one by one. Also, I talk about the major mode first. We call ลายโป้ซ้าย ลายสุดสแนน ลายสร้อย in ทางยาว pattern or minor mode. We have ลายน้อย ลายใหญ่ and ลายเซ. Okay, I just summarize and a little bit show you about the one by one. ลายโป้ซ้าย that you know the can we have like a diatonic scale, right? Have just only 7 notes, but we have like a 2 octave, and we separate and we like a how to create the feeling used for mode. The first one is ลายโป้ซ้าย we play in C mixolydian and use drone like this. This is the drone sound and this is the melodic and a fingering. When I play like a octave or fourth or fifth or the single note to play, it's possible to play in the Mixolydian. The next one is I call Lai Susanan is the like a change to G Mixolydian mode. And you see a drone is still like a G, high G as well, and the medium G. Okay, the next one we go to Lai Soi is a D Mixolydian. But we change to a drone sound like a high A and D. And we move to the minor mode. First one is Lai Yai, is the A Aeolian or A minor. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. This is a Lai Yai. That one is Lai Noi. Is Lai Noi. That one is Lai Noi. I'm sorry. And we play like a D Dorian mode. And this one Lai Yai. last one, equalize and it's just only the picture. And then if you if the composer wish a passage to sound idiomatic within the traditional mode, it is possible and preferable to simply indicate the mode by the name. You can write the name of the mode if you want to the player to play if the sound or the scale that you want, and design the drone and write out the single monophonic melody. The performer will be able to realize the melody with the characteristics, doubling, and some ornamentation as well. The next technique, which in the basic traditional we use the great note, but in Thai we call prom, something like this. Sorry, grace note in Thai we call sabat or note ประดับ but prom is a next technique is a finger tremolo. As you see in the technique is a commonly traditional technique to the often used in for the playing the melody in the parallel octave. That you see we just hold the lower melody and I rapidly repeat in the higher note. Next thing is like a swing tempo. And the last one is called on attract. In my culture, is called tuat, just like a attack. The last part, I will talk about what I find in the instrument to create a new technique. And I think in many modern music in Chinese or Japanese, I think they have many technique in traditional and how to explain in Western music. And I try to do something like that, and I will like a Western style how to can bring like a how to make the characteristic like a real traditional but understand in the modern technique and Western symbolic that we will use for the performance technique. The extended technique, Western notation in Khaen, we can find around 9 or 10. The first one is the double tanking, something like this. Okay. The next one, for this one, you can write down just only the common note, but you have to mark like a 2 point on the top or under the note, and the player can understand what you want to listen from the instrument. Next one is the faster tanking. I move fast because I in the last part I have to show you about my experiment something with people. All right. The next is the vibrato, and you can write down something like this. And I one is a half whole. You can write down half whole like this. And I play. When I play, I blow in and a little bit open the hole to half. The sound is a bit higher, but I should be slow because the sound is good. If you like a play too fast, it not can make it happen. So difficult. Something like that. The next one is the crescendo. Like a singing when I blow in and I have to sing and make the voice as well to make like a combination between the can sound and my voice. want to write how to like a can at the top line and the first line and the sinking in the second line is good for understand. Or maybe if it's the same note, you can just write down like the same note, just not have two line, and just write down the sinking and play together is okay for me. The next one is breathing sound. Okay, breathing sound we have two types, right? The sound of the wind is blow when the time can be defined as inhalation and exhalation. This is a technique focused mainly on the sound of the wind. Same or not same? With in and out. Okay. The next technique, open and close position. And about technique, using one hand to close and open the bottom of the can while blowing is create a sudden color difference because player have to use one hand to hold the bottom end of the instrument. This technique may have some like a limitation of the pitch of the sound. That is, the player may not be able to play if get every note when doing this technique. And for this technique, you can write down the consort or censor sort, like a consort, like you have to close the button, and the censor sort like a open, or maybe plus or O. The next one is blow button. I just make the sound, but keeping in the rhythmic, just only rhythmic. It's only I will like something more. All right. The last technique I call choral effect. Like a you can fingernail to scratching the bamboo to make the noise. Okay. The next part, I think I have to, I would like to show you about some traditional style, but actually I think I have to play. I have to play is better because it's more interesting. All right. The first one I will play in traditional mode. I have to move background first because everyone can see my instrument. Sorry. All right. And the second one, I have to use the new technique and experiment something. Okay, ครับ something like this. Thank you so much. And I will show the experiment between Khaen and Thai Fiddle saw and composer and experiment who came from London, the Doctor อาจารย์ AnoThai ครับ and remember the name Irigo, Dr. Irigo. Yes. We tried something together at Kalanya Nivatana Institute maybe 2 years ago. Maybe. Alright, just show you a little bit what happened in this video.
very much. Very interesting. So for those who was here during the presentation by Piawat, you also heard him talking about the techniques that of Thai techniques. So now you have a chance to hear them originally by Thai instruments, right? So anyone who has some questions, so please. Piawat, do you have a question?
Yes, yes. So, so first of all, thank you very much, Tontrakul. I think that's a great presentation, and I have, of course, because we are on the same ship, like on board. Like we do like similar research. Like as a composer, maybe I'm not a player, but I also have some thoughts about this. I'm very impressed, like your presentation, like working with a lot of like development of techniques, like in innovation of the use of the instrument. Like how can be evolve like from just like only traditional sense. I can see that there's a lot of extended techniques, like the language that come from the Western ideology, like for example, like a flutter tongue, singing, like a lot of things that you also transcribe into the Western notation as like clearly state, like, which is really good. And I, like from like my like compositional point of view, I can feel like sometimes we are kind of controlled by like some sort of like notation or thought from if I allowed to say, like it's kind of like European tradition of notation writing, and also the ways of expression, like using like all these techniques. And what I'm curious, like really, that what Western ideology couldn't do. Like because you say a lot of like what you can do, right? Like what can make things. But for example, if we are not borrowing like thoughts from from Western or from European tradition, what can do, like itself, like what is the like the really authentic, or also could be the potential of the development of the authentic music that you could present today, So that's just like kind of big question, but it's struggle for me as well, like as a composer, like how to how to make music, like try not to borrow too many culture, but also like create something really original, like, or it's just like question. So please.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you for the question. I think about the notation, in my opinion and in my way, I just like a symbolic, like a borrow some the language to talk each other between the composer and the performer. But actually that technique you say is very not real from a traditional way to create the new the sound, but I just summarize in the traditional way and the experimental way, and that I use, and I have to find the word to connect between the composer and just only the performer. And I think can is like a can be make more more that I show you, and I have to try, and I have to find the new things of this instrument, more. Thank you,ครับ.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to like just like dig in. So what kind of new things that you think that could come from Khaen? Like it's like, for example, me myself, like my research, I'm working on like amplification, like Yeah, this is again, this is a bit Western, but at least like to amplify, at least to amplify the sound from the can. I try to use like very less techniques, like lesser, it's just like my approach, but it's just like I'm just curious, like what is really what we can advance the instrument, like just forget about techniques, but what we can really draw the potential of the instrument itself, like as you are a performer, probably the best, because like you are the best speaker in Thailand, to be honest, like who knows about this instrument, right? So please tell
I'm
me.
not sure to answer your it correctly, but I think we have to develop our like a perspective to interpret something new, right? If I have just only this instrument, but I have to develop my my thinking how to play with it with like a not just use old technique, or not just to think about the technique first, but think about the idea and how to develop and how to matching with that music when the performer play. Is the important point more than the technique, I think.
That's very cool. Just to wrap up, maybe like some other half questions. So I like the way of Tontrakul said about like the adaptation, like when you experience in a situation with composers, with other musicians, it's kind of like getting you like kind of sonic experience, right? Something like create potential at that time, like okay, like for example you met you show us like the work with the like the synth, the latest piece, like there's a lot of like cultural versus, right, like from electronic culture and also like the traditional instrument culture. It's kind of like sometimes it's like authentic plus non-authentic plus technology. Great response. I think that's cool. I mean I have no opposing anything, but I think that's great, and I hope like we can work with you more, maybe like finding new pieces together or new collaboration. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, Rio.
Hi, Rio.
Hello, thank you so much, Tontrakul, for introducing this instrument. I mean, I have no idea this instrument exists, and it's such a fascinating instrument. And the range of the sound, like the variety of the sound that this instrument can create, like you presented, is such a fascinating. And I have no idea other instruments can do this much of various range of the characters and sound quality and everything. Just one of the techniques that you showed us reminded me of Tanapat presentation the other day, like the electric sound. Those like using a data as an instrument, and he showed us such an interesting sound, and also the traditional way of playing it sounded like more blues and sort of organ, and kind of it's just such a fascinating range of this sound. And I'm so grateful that you brought this instrument to me, and super thankful that you introduced the instrument. And I guess one of the questions that maybe I might want to ask you is, like I think Piawat sort of presented last time, there is a quality of the culture being a sound, or culture being a music. I'm just curious what your thought about this instrument. What is it about Thai culture? Like, what makes it sort of what kind of things does this instrument have to express some of the cultural aspect of Thailand?
I'm not sure about the question, but I think the sound of this instrument is very unique, right? And if we will present about the sound and like the about Thai culture, we can just use only the sound from this instrument is enough to present the Thai culture, I think. What you can talk about this topic, more, but I think in Thai I can like describe is better. Sorry, in English.
No. Is this like instrument that everybody sort of knows in Thailand? So it's like a really traditional, like sort of instrument that has been rooted in the Thai culture or the Thai music culture. Is that like sort of right? I don't know. Because I have never heard of or I've never seen this instrument. Although it has some similarity with the Japanese show, which is another sort of pipe kind of a bamboo organ instrument. But I've never seen or heard of this instrument, Khaen. So I was just curious, like what this instrument is in terms of in Thai culture.
Okay,ครับ. This instrument is very popular and very worldwide. When we mostly we use in the popular style, popular music, and it's very famous to play with the another genre like a pop, rock, electronic music, and it's very unique because the sound is very unique, and the body is very unique, right? And when you can search in YouTube or maybe in the Google and just only write the name of this instrument, you can see like a very worldwide and various the genre of music to bring this instrument to play. Yes.
I think maybe just a quick notion about, I think Khaen is very important instrument for the culture from Northeast. Like maybe Tontrakul, you can say about maybe you can lead us, about like how it's important from the part of the region, like how maybe you can mention about like Molam or like Luktung, like how the instrument become a part of the culture, like how it leads the culture with the musical elements,
Okay.
So.
Okay, I try. So this instrument is the ancient instrument in Southeast Asia around 3,000 years ago, and that time they used in like a animism religion to make this sound like to connect God and the people in the earth, and that sound is quite similar that we call nok karawek, maybe in English like a phoenix bird. It's very the special sound in that time, and they develop and change many time to like a music for entertainment, and then this instrument is like a play for the Molam single. Molam single is very worldwide in the Mekong River area, like Thai, Laos, Cambodian, this area, and we use this instrument to play like an accompaniment and solo as well, and have like the band have the many instruments in the band. And right now that's I just told you last question, like Khaen they not change anything, they not change anything in the past, but just just they have like a 5 note, like a pentatonic, like a do re, do re, do re mi sol la, like a pentatonic note, but play in the Mixolydian first, and then they develop like a use the fifth in I don't know how to say in English, but like if you count the fifth and you have the one scale, right, like the white key on the piano, that concept they use in the can, and but not bring from the Western, but is it just only Thai Lao culture. We use that, and we have like a 7 note and 2 octave, and can play quite similar the diatonic scale in Western, and we play like a chord and interval, fifth, fourth, and can right now is very popular because if you want to present Thai culture, can is the first one the composer want to bring to the composition, because the sound, because the like a identity something is more and like a unique from the country in Southeast Asia.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. I just put a little bit of transcript, so maybe just keywords. So if you
โอเคครับธนพัฒน์ครับ
Yeah.
So, Sawadee I'm Thai as well. So, as I'm growing in Thai and born and raised in Thai, I have some of my acquaintance as Thai Northeastern. Actually, Can is pretty prevalent in Thailand in our like collective consciousness, and I just happy how much you discover the sound out of one simple instrument, but you can have many layers add to the original sound itself. I think it's very useful for us to explore as the sound makers.
Thank you ครับ
Fantastic. So now I think it's time. So maybe we should have some quick break, like 5 minutes, so we can stretching a bit, and then we will come back for a panel discussion that will lead by Dr. AnoThai. Okay, so let's come back here in 5 minutes.
see you soon.
See you soon. Okay, welcome back for the last sessions for today. So it is going to be a panel discussions for all presenters, all artists, and all composers. So this panel discussion will be led by Dr. AnoThai Nitibhon from Princess Kalayani Watana Institute of Music. So thank you very much for your participations, and I will leave the stage for you.
Thank you very much, Nopagon, and good evening, good afternoon, and possibly good morning for Biowat in the States. So thank you very much for staying with us so late. And hello to our friends in Japan as well. Thank you very much, Thailand New Music and Arts Symposium, for organizing this, and also Japan Foundation for making this all possible, and also for Mutita and all these wonderful partners today that are being here with us. So thank you, Nopagon, for sending me all the links of the previous day event. It's been extremely helpful, and I encourage any of our audience who hasn't seen those to go back and see those clips again. It's really wonderful discussions that has been happened. And thank you, Riel, for the wonderful presentations on your projects, Mutita, and also Yusuke for piano repertoire, that like a Japanese piano repertoire. I already recommended to some of my students, so they'll be looking forward to some of your work there. And thank you also for Tanapat and Biowat, also for your wonderful presentation, which I will, of course, have a lot of questions with. And of course, Marin and Shawn, who sadly cannot be with us now. And thank you also for Tontrakul. Thank you. It's really wonderful to see the progress you have made, and a lot of things that you have a lot of challenge that you have overcome. So thank you very much. So without further ado, maybe I bring it out from our last sessions when we talk about Khaen. There's one thing that I kind of like when Riel asked, what is important about Khaen and what kind of things you can reconnect with the ideas of Thai identity. I was thinking of how these bamboos pieces are bounded together as an instrument. And as you see that this also happens in Sho, in Japanese music cultures as well. And somehow this is a really good examples of how music are made. Music is not always made by just one bamboo, but a lot of reeds coming and bound together as a collective, which Biowat has mentioned already in his work, that it's the ideas of music working together from different cultures, and exactly to the title of our panel discussion today, Hybrid Cultures and Sonic Diversity. So in this case, my first question, I really love Shawn examples about the ideas of koro, the idea of shakuhachi, of like two bamboos moving and touching each other and make sounds. Likewise, thank you to Riel for your questions about Ma, and he then explained about the two kind of big doors and the moonlight that shine through. So do you think this idea is still exists in Japanese music or any music in the world? Is the idea of silence and overtone the same way as it was before? And is the idea of noise that has been mentioned, that noise is as beautiful as music, are we approaching it the same way as it was? Or are we making a new meaning for it? Sorry, two questions. This idea of the silence, overtone, and the idea of noise. Are we trying too hard to make noise, to how to call that, validify noise as a pitch, or do we leave it to have the liberty of being noise? Anyone? Sorry, this come at 3:30 in the morning for
Okay,
you.
maybe I should jump in
Yeah.
So first of all, I think actually it's very common. I feel like I have kind of like similar feeling, similar sense with AnoThai in terms of I think it's about awareness, right? Like it's awareness of working on something really historical, something really cultural. Like it's a great question about like, are we using like the same manner, or we try to get to go something else, right? So like both like Shawn and Tontrakul, like I mean, of course, I love it. I love all the presentation, the exploration. But then, like one of the same question is about like, are we borrowing like passively the thoughts from Western ideology, like because like in Western we start from like sound, right? Sound and overtone, sound and no sound, right? Sound and silence become something about sound. So like, are we aware about that or not? Like, but in for example, in my case, like when I do like composing, like for example, the recent piece for Om Namo for ensemble, I mentioned about the idea of collective composition, a collective idea, which actually came from I'm not the one who made it, okay, but at least like from like our colleagues at Archon Kim, who is the director of Omnibus Ensemble, mentioned about the collective idea. It's about the kind of like networking by brain, like like today internet is so powerful, right? Like you put a letter, you put something on Google, YouTube, and then you get so many information, right? So it became kind of like more like a resources. So my point of view is that like in order to get away, like not get away, sorry, like in order to get the new path of working, of this working environment, like not only just like exploring, oh, what is it come from, like what is the originality, what can it do, maybe we have to think like what are we doing rather than what it can be. It's you know what I mean, like well, like just try to be like have self-awareness all the time, like what is actually the point of working there, like when you do a lot of exploration on instrumental techniques, maybe you have to ask yourself like why you are doing that, right? What is the purpose of looking for those sounds, looking for those identities? Then it's just gonna go back to the question like, are we going to the same path or not? Like because like maybe some people have this a similar research, but a different approach. Like how we can for example, if like I also have a chart like similar to Tontrakul about like like the how Thai music can be transcribed in like the characters of like of the West, like as Western notation, but my approach is about the character of the movement of the performers, like when you call it sabat, right? Like grace note, like that action, how the action important rather than how the sound itself important. Like when you do like sabat, right? Like grace note, they have like the movement like this, right? And then if you do reverse way, there's a different angle of visual, right? And also the sound. Like when you are in the normal experience, now we are in Zoom, but then like that's a different way of sabat, right? That's a different way of grace note, like because like when we learn, for example, of course we all learn from Lakhinman, Boulez, or like people from the past, right? And I mean he's still living, so I'm sorry, but I mean like people from the past, I mean like like that kind of like 60, 70 things, like we try, right? We try to find possibilities, right? Like we call it possibilities, but then we didn't talk a lot about potentialities of approach, right? Like why we are doing that. So I think why will be the keyword for for the question, about the are we doing the same thing or not? So
It's the
that's my
intention and the
answer.
why, right?
Intention.
Okay, intention
Yes.
and the why. Thank you. So it's the essence. So anybody else adding to this point? Yes, please, Rio.
Yeah, thank you. I do agree with Piawa's awareness, intention, and how you think about the music, how you think about those silences and the noise. But for me, since I really started exploring myself with the Japanese traditional music, and as Shawn mentioned, the sound of nature, the connections with nature, the idea of meditation, for me has a lot of things to do with how I perceive notion of silence and noise in music. And I think one of my favorite composers, Takemitsu, has a great book about speaking about the noise and silence, and that really shaped my idea as well. But for my sort of exploration in conducting, my conducting teacher always says, conduct the silence. I always try to think about what that means. But it really is sort of your intention, how you kind of bring the music out of yourself. Like, is it in this kind of steady pulse? The silence is within the pulse, or the sound is within the pulse, or is it something that you feel, decent, connections with nature, or your meditative state, or your spiritual being as a part of silence, and it has nothing to do with a steady pulse or musical directions, but it's like inner sort of expression itself. So yeah, I think it's all about your nature or your intention. And then of course, in terms of a comparison of these ideas, past and current, I think there are huge changes because of the society that we live in. Piawa brought up the computer or internet. I think those are the things that we, probably affecting us, affecting how we perceive the information. And definitely I say it's nothing, is right or wrong, but I feel like we have a different way of perceiving, silence, noise, comparing with the past. So that's just sort of, sorry, this is still like almost 4 o'clock right now here. So my probably thinking process is not probably in the center, but that was just my thought.
That's a very clear answer, actually. I mean, you can see that there are differences. And my questions as Piawa mentioned during his talk, that we should all be skeptical about our cultures. And I think I am as well. So like when we perceive ideas of noise and silence, maybe because of the environment is changing, therefore, do we need to keep that? Do we need to protect those essence, or do we adapt it, or do we find new ways to approach silence in a different way? So we have a lot of people. So Guy, come on in, Thanapat, please.
Okay. I will lower my hand. Okay, so okay. As I work with electronic for a while, there is also a notion of noise and silence as well in electronics, like circuitry by like a electron flowing. Maybe it's in some way it can convey that is absence and the presence of a message. So or an information by itself. But when we take back and look at the noise, right? If we speed something very quickly, it become frequency, right? It become a tone, something. When we do something like our daily routine, one day to another day is repeatedly become a note, become a frequency, become a waveform, or something like that. And As I'm thinking about noise, I'm thinking about the time frame that we looking into the noise. Is our zone right here as a human being is with we can be as one point of a whole bigger noise actually. If you look at the whole time scale of the happening universe or in human history, it just fluctuation. And I think that if we change our perspective into looking into the rise and fall, not like absent and present, we can gain much more information about where we has been and how we can interpret this state of being or this state of sound to be used in our art form. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Transition.
Love the answer. Love the answer. Thank you. Tanakan and Marin. Tanakan, please.
Yeah. So the second. All right. I'm sorry if my sentence is not in order. It's almost full in. So yeah. So what I want to say is I want to emphasize from real and P a lot. So I think the concept of noise is it's not only depending on how we seeing it, but also like since we were young as kids, our ears being trained differently. So how we perceive sounds in general is all different. Even though like half of us here, we all trained with the Western traditions. But in fact, when we listen to something like some certain sound, we would hear it differently. Some of us would think of it as a noise, or some of us would hear it as like some very beautiful sounds. But ultimately, noise are like a kind of sounds that contain like multiple cultures. And not just only that, it being created through certain unique action and its anatomy structure. It has like these kind of very interesting overtone series and many other things. So it's just how we viewing it is in the end it comes back to like our awareness. And also like what Tanapat just said about the time itself. Actually, that what you just spoke though is actually a concept of Ma, but not Ma in Japanese concept, but it's a Ma in Chinese concept, which is the edge of time from the beginning and at the end. But in Chinese philosophy, they're referring to the process of birth and death. And when I'm thinking about this though, it's very funny, like how this being translated to during Shawn presentation, when he's saying like it's just one flow of energy, we've tried to find a starting point of the gap and filling in. But that actually based on the action of playing. And somehow it's reminded me of Newton, law of Newton. I think many of us like been through this. You know, like you have an object, you have energy, you push it, and like the amount of energy you push towards to that object. For example, you push it very hard, it go very far, right? If you push very soft, it just go a little bit further. So back to Pia Watt's answer. It just why we're doing this and why we still keep thinking about it, and it's about our awareness. But most interestingly, time is very, very, very interesting. It's not from me though. Actually, this is a question that made by one of musicologists named Tarek Skin. Is the only thing I like about this guy. He's saying about the agent of time, the agenda of time itself. Like because we are human being, we only perceive time, space, like from our perspective in a linear way. But then many scientists, many philosophers that use time as their subject, they mention that time itself is very fluctuated because time is never go like in the direction that we expected. It can reverse itself too if the object is travel faster than light, of course. So it can go backward. But because we're human being and we only experience that everything should go towards to one direction. So that's the reason why space, silence, and all these things can be very, very interesting for us.
Thank you, Tanaka. And Marin?
Oh yes. So as Ryo-san said, I think silence and noise in music are very related to spiritual or natural power, because in Shimauta, when we sing, we use natural loud voice and very unique falsetto alternately, and the unique falsetto used in Shimauta is, it is said that it is a dedication to God. And so when we switch into the unique falsetto from the natural sound, natural like loud voice, the sound goes to spiritual world. So it is what is said in Shimauta, and I think silence and noise are very there's something to do with spiritual natural power.
Okay, so this might kind of like reverberate to what Tanakan said about the ideas of gravity, ideas of that energy. So this is kind of like a physical phenomenon that human face. So thank you very much. I think we can definitely always explore about the ideas of silence and time. And thank you for Shawn diagram earlier, the 5 things. That's a really wonderful way of explaining the beginning, the ending, and the connection for the new beginning of sound. So that's really beautiful. So thank you very much. I think we can explore further. So let's move a little bit from the time, the silence, the negative space, to the positive space, the ideas of place, the idea of ideas that can people share, place for creativity, bringing from the ideas of Biowat. So what do you think about collective composition? Can composers, artists really cohabitate? How about the ideas of authorship? Are we not protecting that anymore? Anyone, I mean, anyone can start. It doesn't need to be Biowat. So.
I mean, can I start?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I absolutely think that, I mean, collective composition or sharing the creativity with other people, absolutely necessary things for the future creativity in entire world. I mean, that's basically the the spirit of Mudita, where we want to bring a creativity, we want to bring the environment to be creative, to be free, accessible to anybody. And I think, current society, at least from my experience, from my feeling in Japanese society, is somehow limiting to that. And I think that's something that, since I came to the US, since I came, as I explored different world, different culture, I'm such a grateful to be able to have this moment of freedom and to be able to have that and collaborate with other people and find such a, joyful moment. I think, that just openness and the freedom is something that I really cherish as an artist. I think that should be accessible to anybody. And when we, find the collective creativity as a product, I think there is something that we cannot experience. Like, we cannot really explain with our words. It's such a special moment, I feel like. So sorry, just jump to start with. I absolutely promote the idea of what Pierre did with his colleague, and I think that's such a beautiful moment in art and creativity.
Completely agree with you as well. I think in a way that you always felt that when you have a collective creativity, it means that someone has to surrender their own freedom. But in your case, Rio, you just mentioned that it's actually more liberating to be collaborating, right? And people can gain more freedom by exploring, share space with other. Anyone else you'd like to add to that point? Anyone who has, please, Tanakan.
Yes, I haven't experienced the concept of collective creativity myself yet, but what I finding it very interesting through Peter What Works is that actually he called me to like during that week. So I've been I listened to him talk about it before the presentation, but I find it very interesting that when an identity of a composer itself being, I would not say being judged, but being revealed itself in a certain manner, that his identity or her identity is no longer belong to them, but it belongs to something else. And how would they reflect themselves as a composer at that moment? But at the same time, their works becomes a new kind of work. It built a new kind of culture. It built a new doctrine and practice. I find this process very, very interesting. And also, it's not just only the idea of like developing new kind of approaches towards art and allow people to work together. Is that right now, like in general, like especially these few years, we have problem with diversities, you know, genders or cultures. But if we put all these music, these disciplines and multiculturalisms like together, it's, you know, in a way, it's like introducing like that there is a diversity, yet there is no diversity. It's just like unification of everything together. And also like, I'm thinking that nowadays, apart from this, arts in general, like composers, artists, sound artists, engineer, architect, we tend to go towards to our direction. And when this happens, like we have like, we not really like communicate to each other. We not really see like what actually happened, you know, when we work together. Because like even in collaboration, it's always like, I do this, you do that, and then we combine together. But in this sense, it's no longer combined. It's actually like, you know, how to call that word? Like, you know, you destroy everything, but then you rebuild like everything together, like through these pieces, like a puzzle. And then, yeah, it's like a new kind of identity being born from this process that I find very beautiful.
Anyone to add to that? So,
yes, please. Your lost connection. You will be back soon.
Okay, Thanapat, please.
So, yeah, that I have a little example, but from another side of the whole human occupation. Yeah, so in the terms of collective composition, it sounds like open source software. Yeah. Have you ever like experienced open source software?
Yes.
So open source software for basically it's a software that is collaborated by the people around the world and join as one project. So as I mentioned, Audacity is one open source software. Many of the software that we might be using, GIMP, the photo editing software is also open source. And the one interesting about this kind of software that you can actually try the software out and see what's happened under the hood, under the code that I think this actually apply back to our music scenes, that we actually learn a lot about how we think as a human being and how we organize our thinking process, and actually it makes the collaboration go more advanced. Yeah, and we can learn a lot from each other in this way as well.
I really love your examples about open software. It is in some way, it's the idea of transparency, isn't it? Now that the art that we do is no longer magic that we have to protect, but it's the idea of sharing all these magics to other people so that they can also enjoy and benefit from making those beautiful things as well. Right? Yeah. Anyone to add to that?
I would like to
Yes, please
jump
go
in.
ahead. Now you will be back in the collective, so please.
Yes, it's just a reminder that collective process is only one of the possibility. Okay, so like we of course it's definitely like Ajahn AnoThai said about it's a moment of sharing. Of course, like we work together. Like for example, Tanapat and I, we work, and Nopakorn, we work with the piece, with the light guitar. There's an element from guitarist. There's the element from technician. There's an element from composer, of course. But reminder, it's the one of the possibilities, and the collective process will still remind you that we can have more. Just a moment. Okay, so I just want to mention that the collective process will give you some sort of open source, right? Like it's a kind of, it's a place, it's a habitant, right? It's a place that you can always bring your stuff in, and it has infinite beginnings, it has infinite exits. Like you can make one piece with many versions. Let's say, think about metaverse, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg. So it's a platform, right? It's a platform online, right? That everyone can just teleport in there and get out. You can give it, take it, or leave it at any time. So that's the whole point. Like, at least from my personal point of view, that's the whole point of making the collective process. But of course, there's one problem about authorship, right? That's one problem. Like I had a piece, for example, the Donald Eschingen Commission. It's 70 minutes piece, but it mixed by 4 composers, 12 players, 1 director. Like everything's such like a hectic, like many things, many ideas beyond like the concept of Bible of composer, right? The score as a Bible, composer is a god, artist is a heavenly angel, whatever. But then so like I think we have to balance between the work. It come back again, the approach I try to say about the awareness, like each project or each situation, each research that you're working on, like what is your approach? Why are you doing that? Like why is so important for you, right? Like what, like if, like for example today, I mean I'm not talking about my single composition at all. I just talking about what I have from like the collective process, like the thoughts about like what I can share to you and what I can gain from you. Like, so it's a kind of like a pool. It's a pool of server, right? A server that collect like minds of people. Like when Marin talks about her heritage of like Sanshin, and also like when everyone talks, like Tontrakul talks about the development, like the exploration that he wants to share with us. That it's a moment that we have to think that what is the most important. Then it go back to the authorship, because authorship always say about, okay, the important is about who owns it, right? Who is the contributor, like something like that. So I think it's very important to think like when we need to use collective thoughts, when we need to use individual thoughts, like so that's the whole idea. So that's I just want to express this.
So is the Valhalla at the end? Is this the end of Wotan, where the roles of a certain character or players within music is it the end? I mean, is the role changing? Of course it is. Like now you can see that the coder is becoming a live performers, and instead of kind of like computer that were once tools of humankind, now you can use not just a tool anymore, but use it as a kind of like art instrument, something like that. So do you consider like we have performers, we have composers, conductors, ethnomusicologists here? Do you consider your role changing? I know that Piyavat has kind of claimed 5 different roles in his performers, composers kind of thing. I mean, is there anything that you would like to share with us here? Like, do you consider your roles changing? Is it merging? Do we need to consider like a position which is called composers or performers anymore? So what is the era after Valhalla's end? It shouldn't sound like PhD thesis, but just share some ideas. Go ahead. Anyone? How would you like to be called? Okay, if you have to put it in your name card, I think this is a good way to. Please, Rio. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I've been thinking about in these days, actually. Like, I'm studying orchestra conducting in school. But that's not the only thing that I'm passionate about. And, traditionally, like, okay, but I have to focus on this thing, I'm not supposed to, so it's a struggle for me, and that's something that I've been thinking about. But I think the form of creativity should not limited in one sort of title. I don't think I don't want to put, like, let's say, like when I introduce myself, I mean, it's kind of weird to say, like, I'm a conductor, but I'm also a composer, but I'm also an entrepreneur, but I think that's really who I am. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with, explaining myself with just one title, because I would like to express music physically as a conductor, but I also want to express the musical root of music through visually. But I also want to, I think for me, it's just, still kind of a shallow answer to your question, but as from my perspective, that's sort of where I stand. And I think, creativity should not limited with a title, but it should be more liberated. And, as I hear a lot of the great talks from our colleagues right here, like, I want to explore more about, dada as an instrument. I want to explore, traditional music, Khaen from Thailand. I think it's all about, because we have such a great resources, open access resources here, at this virtual collaboration. I think all the inspirations becomes my creativity, and it's not limited with one, waving my arms, but I want to, explore those resources that I have, that I'm, that is available to me. Yeah, not to totally putting one together, so sorry, but yeah.
definitely not a shallow answer. I think it's very deep, and I think it's also because of the era. We really are at the transition of many things, and it's possibly we're not going to find any terminology for this just yet. Maybe people in the future will be the one who nail what it is called. Thank you for that. Thanapat, please.
Uh, Actually, I'm really come from music background as my like undergraduate degree. I come from the communication background. So as I in this situation as with you all like a music family, I I I experience I'm experiencing experiencing that we are living with will to create and make fluctuation in the world that we are living in. I'm not as Adriel said, I'm not particularly stating myself as one kind of uh, occupation or status, but I actually want to do stuff, want to create stuff, and want to share it with the people that are in this world with me, in this uh, beautiful and not beautiful world with me. Yeah. So actually, I think everything is depends on our will to move our thinking forward into the future as well.
Thank you. I think I really like how you always address something like oscillators. So we actually have like 10 oscillators here, and each of our frequency are being affected or transformed by others. Thank you. And Pia, what, please?
Yes, I just want to respond to everyone. I'm thinking about a tree. Like when Ajahn AnoThai talks about functionalities, right? Like how like one person could be that, could be that, could be that. Like a tree grow from a seed, right? And then it grows like more like lines, and then it goes to like a body of the tree, and then branches. So it's a bit old school, right? But I kind of feel like we, of course, like, as like we are making arts, right? And don't ask me what is art, okay? But like we are making things, and then of course we have to start with something that we are really good at it, right? Like we have to start with something like in common, like to your identity, right? Like I start myself as trombone player, and then some cheesy pop song arranger, and then composer, and then like I don't know, technology, blah blah blah. But then like I think it would be nice to have one main occupation. I don't know, and then from one occupation you can branch out your skills, right? You can branch out your disciplines to develop more, because sometimes it's like when you play a game, right? If you do something the same all the time, it's kind of like max level, right? It's kind of like at the tier. But once you get some other subject, you get some other topics of research or like exploration, and then you get more skills, right? But at the same time, it's very dangerous too, like being a person who do everything. I think like because it's not focused, right? It's like not quite I mean, it's good to do many things, but it's good to focus on something too, and then like try to find the meaning of
Yeah.
what you are doing, and then keep doing that. So it's a kind of vague answer, but I think it's a very important point for artists to think about. So
This is tricky though, in a way that in the near future or even now, that the things you do for your living and the things that you like would like to do for your occupation is sometimes can be different. You have to do something in order to survive, but actually your passion lied elsewhere. So this is gonna be a tricky balance for you guys in the new generation. So good luck with that. I have no answer for you guys. So good luck exploring that. And then possibly the next thing that I'd like to add, I really like what Rio said in his talk about the idea of non-judgmental environment. And the weed, as Thanapat mentioned, are we having already a good, supportive enough, a warm enough musical family that will help us in our ventures into new ideas? Or what else do we need to create a warm and supportive musical family? How can we create a non-judgmental environment within the art scene? Sorry, I keep creating hard questions. Any ideas?
Asking, AnoThai. I think keep asking.
I promise this is almost the last one. The next one will be the last one. Yeah. Yeah. Or is there anything that you've seen people inspire you in making a kind of non-judgmental support towards other artists?
I think sorry, go ahead, Pio.
No, go ahead. No, I talk too much. Go ahead.
No, I talk too much.
You need to talk. You're the panelist. You have to talk. That's the whole point.
All right, I'll go. I think it all comes down to the education. How early you can have access to diverse education. If a young student have access to diverse, let's say, musical education, not just Western music or not just Japanese traditional music, but all kinds of music, I think the perspective that these children have would be broadened, would be more receptive, would be more sort of empathetic to any sort of, people, background, culture. So if we start, kind of building the educational sort of curriculum where we give the exposure to young children, diverse content, I think it will change of how much of perspective these young people have, and that becomes sort of a non-judgmental but really open to, because once you understand them, once aware of differences, it makes huge difference of how you perceive, other information. So I think, if we become that kind of habits from younger generation, I think it's one of the possibilities. I think there are many, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Totally agree. It's how you expose them at a very young age to diversity, right? Yes. Anyone else? How about in art making, like scene? Have you suffered like the judgment of others, of other artists, and how do you see that change in the near future?
Yeah, I'm totally agree to Mr. Liu, but I think before the diversity, I think it might only in Japan, but I think nationality, identity of nationality is first, is very important, but the people lack of nationality maybe in Japan, but I think the I can say the people in Japan should realize the importance of nationality, and then next, so
most of people would be realize the importance of diversity. So first, in school, elementary school, a student have to learn Japanese culture deeply, more deeply, and so now these days they go to Western music, but go to other Asian music and culture, and I would like to. I hope to introduce Thai music or other music through my playing piano. For example, in my recital or concert.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think as Yusuke said, like we all as an artist, we also have to work as an ambassador to our own cultures as well. And so our roles is not just kind of like promoting, not just promoting. We have to find what it is that is our culture, and then we also the ambassador for that. So thank you. I think it's either the culture that is close to our countries, and also the cultures that is far beyond as well. Right?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for I can't say.
No, but it's clear. Thank you. In this case, I mean, do you think we are like taking from? Sorry again, Real. From you made a good presentation that covers a lot of topics. I see that you sort of like have some analysis of the audience, the age groups, and what types of music, their behaviors, or their comments, their attitudes towards art and culture. That is really detailed kind of thing. And from those informations, do you think that we now as an artist understands our audience already? Or is there anything else that us as an artist should do to be able to have the empathy, not only among artists, but towards our audience as well? Have we done enough?
Okay. Can you
repeat the questions? My question is, do you think as an artist, have we done enough to communicate to our audience, and to actually, beyond communicating, to empathize or understand what the audience needs? Have we done enough?
I mean, my question is that do we need to do that? Like, like, because like as we are an artist, like we do, of course, like many artists do for pleasure. Some artists do for economy, right? Like for money or whatever, or do for, team, collective. But then I feel like, of course, I think like Rio did really great presentation about the audience and about the culture. I think it's more about data, right? It's more about analysis on like how you can reach to the society, but at the same way, I think personally, I think we don't have to make ourselves to suit to the audience, because we are the audience. If we try to make multi-functionalities, we are both passive person and active person at the same time. So I think it's like, of course, it's great to make community, like to make like, like music curator, music director, like build a program for the locality, but at the same way, I think we have to think about what we want to communicate, right? It's about the communication, but it doesn't have to be like, do we have enough communication? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important, like what we want to do. I don't know. It's just like it's very simple, but like it's important like what we really have, what we need for ourselves. I don't know. And then audience will come. I think they will. It's if it's gravity, right? If we are pushed too much, we got like less. You know what I mean? But if we like do like kind of like balancing, you know. So I think that's good. I don't know, just like personal.
Sharing? Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Piawat made a quite really clear point, and I think that's one of the reasons why we promote everybody can be an artist, to sort of ease the border between audience and artist. Because if you don't express yourself through creating art, then you cannot be really empathized with anybody. Like it's always the mutual things. Like you have to, like you said, like Piotr said, you have to be active and you have to be passive. You have to be an artist, you have to be an audience. So I think giving everybody the opportunity to be an artist, to be a creative being, at the same time, you can also appreciate some other people's creativity by being audiences, and then you can kind of start building these human connections, what Murita calls empathetic connections. Like conductors, like or composers, like God figure. But I don't think in the future that's really the case. I think everybody can be a conductor, everybody can be a composer, and it's always like vice versa. But I think that kind of environment needs to be created to anybody, because as far as data tells in Japanese art education, I think a lot of people, majority people, are more passive side right now, or even before being a passive being in terms of the art of music. So I think I really like the the point that Piawat made, and really resonates with what I want to pursue through Mudita.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please, Thanapat. And Nopakon as well. Yeah. You're the host.
Okay, sorry. So there is one word that is come recently in the media world, which is prosumer. I hope you have heard this word before. So prosumer is the combination of consumer and producer. So there, I believe that in the scale of artists and audience, there is so much more in between to be explored. The audience can have varied degrees of participation in the artwork itself, whether it be interactive artwork that they can have their influence on the art itself. But of course the artists have to build the artwork and provide the platform for the audience to be in the platform, right? I think this we can explore more in the spectrum of the audience and artists. I think this is really interesting.
And Nopagon?
Yeah, for me as an artist, like the most important things to be as an artist is your self-identity. And from your questions, I very agree with Piawat actually, because when we start to think others people need, what audience need, when we feel empathy for them, we kind of block our creativity process a bit, I think. And then when we try to, of course, as an artist, we want to serve the society with good things, good creations, right? But once we trying to be like, to be serving, to do things that the audience like too much, I think we kind of lose our self-identity, which is not very ideal way to be an artist. I think on the opposite side, when we really deliver who we are truthfully without any empathically, let's say, I think that is also the way to create the non-judgmental environment in a way, because in that way you kind of every artist will has their own kind of identity. So there are kind of various things that audience can see. So there is no mainstream, so there is no things like that. So audience can choose what they like in that way. So the judgment will be lower by that sense, in my opinion.
Because you're being honest. Therefore,
because everyone is being honest. So the society is more non-judgmental because they are kind of more respect to another body as a human being, not like you are doing weird things, you are doing a right thing. No, you are you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I totally agree, actually, like in a way that you have to find yourself, but at the same time, whether the process of being empathetic comes at the beginning, in the middle, or towards the end, then this really kind of like belongs to each person to approach. And in this case, let me push to the last question here, which I really learned from Marin, from the way that you kind of like take an example from the music that you've showcased. It is, let me pronounce it right, Shimauta music, right? And in some way, I really like that the music that you brought in sort of like tell the stories of love, the respects to deities, and also the last example was the hate of another clan. This is kind of like really wonderful that somehow music can pass on so many things. You can pass on love, or you can pass on hatreds as well. So in this case, I would like to ask for you as individual artists, or you can say things about your future artists that you would like to project to. What kind of things should be passed down to our next generation? This can come from you, or it can be your hope for future generations as well. Since we're talking about hybrid cultures and sonic diversity, we wouldn't survive as an artist without society and cultures and diversity. So what do you see taking from Shimauta musical cultures? What can be passed down to maybe like just tomorrow or the decades or centuries after?
That's a difficult question. I believe that by singing Shimauta, I think I can tell people around the world that it is important to have something to rely on. Like it should be, it can be music or person or anything, but you need a space that you can very much rely on, or sometimes less to yourself, because that is how Shimauta, that is how Shimauta was about in the past. So yeah, maybe that's my answer.
This is the strength, isn't it? It's strength and the will to continue living. That is beautiful. Very important nowadays. Indeed. Thank you. Any other comments or last words before I return this to Nopakon?
Maybe I should do last word. I'm sorry. I just keep laughing because this is like
okay. Go ahead.
So I mean, it's a very I mean, like every time when AnoThai, like being in panels, I think this kind of question always brought up, and I think it's always important. Like what can we pass on, right, to the next generation, and like what it means that like what we are doing today is become history for the next time period. And of course, there's a lot of transition. There's a lot of abbreviation, like that. Sometimes artists explore and fail, and that's also a part of the history that this guy failed before. So so it's kind of like, and then come back to the idea of collective. I think like the new generation, I think they should be smart enough to pick, like to select what we have been doing, like what we should really pass on is about archival process. Like everything that we are doing, all the failed experimentation, all the success, all the like kind of chimera, like kind of like not really good, or some kind of like possibilities, we collect them, right, in the archive, in the. That's why we need libraries, right? That's why we need a museum or like historical performance spaces. That's all we are, right? Like we need more group of people to care about the process of what we are doing, because like most of people goes to see the concert, but they didn't know how the process of the concert or performance work, right? Like how much time real you conduct, a symphony, and no one knows, and one shot, only one performance and done, right? So this is, I think this is a very important, and it's gonna be more and more, because like in the past, like in our generation, in like, for example, Ajahn AnoThai's generation and also mine, we have less technologies, like we have less resources that we could access. I mean, like today we have too many. Sometimes I feel like I need a break sometime for today, but still. So I think what we really need to pass on is about the invention, the invention of collection. It doesn't have to be really good things, it could be bad things too, but at least they can see, and maybe they can choose, they can collect the materials and become a bad guy, become a good guy, whatever. It's like, it's a bit like Marvel series, DC, Superman, Batman, but it's true, actually. It's that, Yusuke left, okay, bye. So the thing is, I think it's important for us now to think many possibilities as much as possible, and at the same time to choose a few opportunities and focus on it, and like to make it really impact, like make it really significant. I think that's all I want to say for today. So thank you.
Anything from Rio?
From me?
Yes.
I thought that was a beautiful way of ending, but no, I think no, thank you. So anything to pass on, right?
Or anything that as well, because it's such a beautiful collaborations you have here, I think, and as Rio said, that hopefully the next generations would be smart enough. I think we always, as in a generation, we always think we are smart enough, but it's always like Einstein said, the only two things that are infinite is the human stupidity and the universe, and he was not so sure about the universe. So let's make all these effort to kind of like join in the collective and making all these possibilities that we're not gonna share all of our stupidities and mistakes, so that we can be a little bit more clever tomorrow. So
Yeah.
anything real? And before
No. Yeah, I mean the AnoThai and Piawat, I think those are the absolutely necessary thing in my opinion. And actually one of the projects that we did in Merida in the past is called the WIP project, which is Work in Progress project, where we asked artists to take a video clips of them practicing or them like working on something, but not showing the final products, but taking a video of it, or maybe we make like a what do you call the fast motion, and then we would share on our YouTube and show the audiences or viewers what's the process to get there. As Piawat said, as a conductor, most of the times that we spend our time on is a preparation, score study, and rehearsals. And we get so frustrated because nothing goes well. But you don't really see that in a concert, right? I think those are the moments that maybe audiences or others see it and they think, oh yeah, they are human, like they are the same people like as we are. I think that's also the beautiful moment. And if you are just seeing the completion of things, then you don't really see that. But if you really learn the process of it from archive, from library, from rehearsals, from practice, then we can kind of come to the understanding of somebody's struggle, somebody's journey. And by learning those, I feel like we can be a true multicultural, true diverse, true empathetic being as a creative artist. But first of all, let me say this: thank you so much for being such an inspirational moment, the most inspirational 5 a.m. moment of my life. Really, I'm so grateful to be with you all. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all panelists. Now it's the time for you to have a good night or the good morning. So thank you all the panelists. Thank you Thailand New Music and Art Symposium. And also thank you so much Mutita and the Japan Foundation for making this all possible. So thank you. I return this to Nopagon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, AnoThai, for your very inspiration questions. Very great times. So thank you every panelist who joining us today. So we have talked a lot today and get more motivations, get more inspirations. So next week we also have the final program of this online webinar. So it will be on Tuesday from 12 o'clock. So please join us again next time. So until that time, see you soon.